Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, April Seifert. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is inspired to action, and that's my number one goal, to inspire you, my listeners, to take action in your lives. Each week, I get to interview some of the most inspiring women, and I'm bringing those interviews to you. Let's do it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Women Inspired Podcast. I'm April Seifert, and I am so excited that you joined us this week because we have a wonderful guest, someone who has such a big heart and is devoting so much of her time and energy to a wonderful cause. I'm really, really excited to welcome Anna Bregier to the podcast. Welcome, Anna.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for that introduction.
Sometimes it's fun to listen to other people talk about us. It's like, wow, what are they going to say? So before we really dive into things, I like to have my guests just give us a little bit of an intro about yourself so we can get to know you before we dig into all the good stuff.
Sure. Well, where to begin? I guess I'll start with what I think is my biggest job. I'm a mom. I have 3 little kids, twin sons who are 5 and a daughter who's 1.5. I'm also a full-time development director for a nonprofit called the Cookie Cart. Cookie Cart is based in North Minneapolis, soon to open in St. Paul, Minnesota, and is a youth employment program that gives life and leadership skills. And it's an outstanding program. And I guess the other thing about me is I love to play cards and I love to be outdoors.
Nice. What kind of card games do you play?
Cribbage mostly. I'm a big cribbage person, but I like gin rummy as well.
Nice. So I stumbled across you as I was researching Cookie Cart, and I think it's really interesting the way you describe that organization, because from the outside, if you heard about an organization called Cookie Cart, you'd think about, cookies, right? And if you go to your website, you see really delicious cookies. But you described it a little bit differently with a little bit more nuance about this being more of a youth development program. Tell me a little bit more about those two sides of the coin, the sort of delicious cookie side and then the youth development side.
Yeah, we have great cookies. I'll say that. If I'm going to say one thing about the cookies, they're outstanding. They're homemade. We use fresh ingredients. We use Land O'Lakes butter and high quality ingredients. And that's like wonderful. That's really all that you need to know about the cookies, because what's really awesome about Cookie Cart is that it's a program for teens. So it looks like a traditional bakery. If you would walk in, you can see all the different flavors in the case, but the people working there that are doing customer service and working in the bakery are teens. They're in their first job, and they generally are teens who, maybe don't have the same opportunities in life as everyone else. So because we're based in North Minneapolis, we're serving kids who, 95% of them are qualifying for free lunch. Their families, and they live below the poverty line, often can be homeless, maybe have a whole host of other challenges they're facing as teenagers. And what we're doing is we're providing some skills so that they can break that cycle of poverty, and we're providing a job so they're not only bringing home a paycheck, but learning how to be successful employees.
That's incredible. It's like I said, it's not something that you would completely realize from the outside. It seems when you take it from face value, it seems like, oh, okay, this is an organization where kids bake cookies and I buy them from them. But it is so much more than that. Do you? How did this organization get started? I'm actually really curious because it seems like, I guess, yeah. How did it get started? We'll just go directly there.
Sure. So the concept sort of came to life with a woman named Sister Jean Teroff, and she was a missionary nun who came from Iowa and was assigned to a school and church in Edina. And one of her first projects with the students there was to come to North Minneapolis and work in a school with some kids here. And when she came here, she saw what I think she saw as where she was meant to be. She said, "This is where I belong. These are the people that need my help." And so she sort of jumped ship on her original assignment and moved into North Minneapolis, and really just made her way into the community. Literally would walk out of her door, go to places where people would gather, and bring, I think, especially kids who she saw as really being influenced by older kids, brought them over to her house, and they would make cookies. That became, you knew if you lived in North that you could go to Sister Jean's house and make cookies. And she might help you with your homework, and you could kind of hang out there, and there would be other kids. And that was always sort of the primary thing for her, kids being with other kids and keeping sort of life as simple as possible for them so they don't have to worry about some of the troubles that they might, be faced with, but also giving them something to do, and making cookies was that thing that she started doing. So fast forward, right, to today, and now we still make cookies, but we do it in a little bit more formal employment setting.
That's so sweet of her. And also, can I say that those of us at Women Inspired, those folks who listen to the podcast, we tend to really like a rule breaker. So I really love that she saw a place where she could make a difference and said, I realize I might be bending some rules here, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. That is wonderful. Right. That is the mark of a really strong woman.
Right. She saw a need and she responded to that with such selflessness. I think people to this day talk about how she just welcomed everyone in and she found something for everyone to do. And she would tell stories about literally kids being in her house, and that day they just didn't have any ingredients, and so they would just pray. And sometimes people would show up with ingredients, and I don't know if it happened quite in that succession, but I think she believed that was really powerful, and if she asked the community for what she needed, she would get it. And over time, she proved that to be true. So
what I think is really cool about that too is that, she saw this need, and in the beginning, her initial steps were to do something that is so simple. I mean, how many times have you, people listening, have you made cookies with your kids, or have your, grandparents made cookies with kids? And it just seems like such a simple activity, but sometimes the simplest thing can have such a massive impact, and you just never know where that might grow.
Right. Yeah, I think what she thought she was teaching them, what she was teaching them, but what I think she thought she was teaching them was some simple things like math and about fractions and measuring, things like that, right? And then so the story goes that eventually, they couldn't eat all the cookies, so they started selling them. So she would bag them up and send the kids out to the street corner where the stoplight was, and then when the stoplight would turn red, they would walk up to the cars and offer to sell cookies. So she's teaching them a few little sales skills and some, interpersonal skills, a little bit of customer service, right? And as the organization grew, some of the really simple things that come out of just mixing up a batch of cookies, expanded into these are really, really powerful life skills that are going to help you, be successful, even if you don't want to bake cookies your whole life.
Totally. So how has that expanded today? What, in addition to making cookies, what are some of the development services and other things like that, the classes and things like that? What do you guys offer for these kids?
Yeah, so a traditional student will apply for a job like any other first job. So come in, get an application, fill it out. We ask you to bring in, a couple of references that aren't your relatives. A lot of times this is a first job, so they're not going to have a previous job experience. And then they have to bring in a copy of their grades. One of our kind of stipulations is students need to be, passing classes. So we don't want to be competing with school in a way that disruptive. And then they, have a, kind of informal interview and are hired. Usually that happens within 2 or 3 months of their application, but we do hire in cohorts. So then a group of teens starts working at Cookie Cart. They work in the bakery, and they start with some really basic, like, what is Cookie Cart? What is your job here? And they, on a daily basis in the bakery, they make cookies. They do kind of all the aspects of that, from, mixing up dough, scooping cookie dough, counting out orders, putting baked cookies into boxes, and decorating cookies. And they might put together, 20 or 30 orders in a shift. So in kind of conjunction with that, maybe they're working a couple of days a week. One day a week, they might start taking classes. And we offer 3 classes that they go through kind of over, a 6 to 8 week period for each class. The first class is foundations. So it's sort of how to succeed at work, a little bit of, how to handle conflict, a little bit of customer service, a little bit of, what is your mission? Then they go into classes that focus on leadership. So now it's not just how to handle conflict at work, but how to sort of manage that amongst some other kids, right? It's how to sort of lead the shift and delegate out some different tasks for teenagers. And then they go into the last set of classes, which is called Bright Futures, and that's really career exploration. So they put together a resume. They start to think about the connections they've made at Cookie Cart and how they might stay in touch with those folks so they are professional connections going forward. They start to think a little bit about what kind of school they might be interested in and what their options are. And we have support for those kinds of conversations to happen. So they're, working in the bakery. They take a couple classes. The last thing they do is they go out into the community, and we do some different community experiences. And this is really kind of bringing it back to Sister Jean's mission, but we go out and set up pop-up sales. So we'll go to a corporate campus or a holiday fair, things like that, and set up a little cookie stand and sell cookies. It helps, kids get to practice the kind of giving the pitch, the mission, and we sell a lot of cookies. People like to buy them kind of in that setting. We also go out and do workplace visits. So we'll go to a corporate campus and tour, their departments and learn a little bit about what kind of jobs are available at a company, what kind of benefits you get working at that company, what the work environment is like. And again, really all with the eye on how do we expand the worldview of the teen so that they know, there's lots of things out there. You and I, we kind of decided on our career based probably a lot on some of the adults we had in our lives. So I knew what my mom did. I knew what my dad did. I knew some teachers, right? So the teens that we're working with often don't have adults in their lives who have steady jobs or careers that are aspirational. So they don't really know what's out there for them. And what we want to do is say, what are you interested in, and how might you apply that to a job that you like? So is it about finding something that has some meaning for you and you like the mission and you can do lots of different jobs there? Or is it, I like computer science. I don't care where I work. I want to do computer science. Like, how do we kind of sort through all of that? That's something every teenager needs. It doesn't really matter if you're, above or below the poverty line. Everybody needs help kind of thinking through that stuff. So what we try to do is really give teens exposure to adults who can have those conversations with them and who have different experiences that they bring to the table.
That's awesome. You just struck a chord in my heart because I've talked about this a number of times on the podcast, but one of the reasons why I started this podcast is I wanted to bring women to the surface and give them a medium to get their stories out there so that the things that they were doing could serve as an example for other women who might have similar goals or other women who might be facing a similar adverse situation or challenge, because we don't go after things that, number one, we didn't even realize were an option. We also don't go after things that seem impossible for, quote, a person like me to do. And so the example I always give is in the context of talking about women is, Casey Catanzaro was the first woman who made it through American Ninja Warrior through the entire, awesome. course. She was the first woman who did it. And immediately after her, like 5 women were able to do it. it's like all you need sometimes is a person to show you, yes, this is possible for someone like you. And yes, this is an option that you should be considering. So you take that, and there's so many commonalities between people. I mean, there's just these common human experiences, and they start when we're very young. And one commonality here is you've got this group of kids who need someone to show them, yes, it is possible. Yes, it is an option for someone in your position, someone like you, however you want to interpret that, however that individual might interpret that. This is something you should think about as an option, and I'm going to help you do that. That's wonderful. And it's something that all of us need from time to time.
Right. We kind of talk about it like that spark is inside them already. We're not putting into them some magic formula. We're just showing them what it is they already have. And, you're right. Women particularly, I mean all people, but women particularly, are capable of outstanding feats. They can do so much with so little, and they can sacrifice in a way that as I come across women who wear multiple hats and are walking the fine line of exhaustion because they just do so much with whatever it is, school or work, their resilience is outstanding, and what they are able to accomplish is incredible. And it does show you that you can do anything you want. You just need to believe in yourself.
100%. What stories have you heard from some of the kids who have come through your program? Have they come back and shared feedback about what they've been able to do or what the program meant to them?
Yeah. I mean, so I have a couple of really great examples. There's a woman who we work with now who she worked with Sister Jean. So, I mean, we're talking 77, 78, back in those days. That was when Sister Jean first came, and her name is Bianca, and she says that, she came into the kind of mix as a, cookie maker, but she eventually got to go out and sell on the street. And she is the product of one of the earliest days of Cookie Cart, right? And today she is a single mom. She raises 2 children, both, nearing adulthood. So, and she has a professional career. She works at the Capitol. And she was telling me a story of her son. And her son, she said, ever since he was about 6 years old, we go on date nights. And my goal was always to teach him how to be a gentleman. Aww. And so she said they would go out to a place where it was a white tablecloth, and she would let him order whatever he wanted. And sometimes he would get crazy things and would hate it. And she's like, he went through a time where he would order grilled cheese no matter where we went. But it was always about, how to show him how to be a good man because he didn't have a dad. And I think about that woman, and I think that's what Sister Jean was trying to do with bringing kids into Cookie Cart. It's not just helping that kid, but it's helping that kid help her kids, right? And then I would say more recently, we have teens who have left here and are now in college. We have one young lady who just graduated from college and has a degree in psychology, and she got a position at a agency, or I guess, I don't know, doctor's office where there's 2 other psychologists and she's the third one. And, always wanted to work with people, always wanted to help others. And that was the path she took. And, again, I think that was in her before she started at Cookie Cart. But what we helped her do was stick to her plan. She, set some long-term goals about what she wanted to do, how she was going to get through college, how she was going to help pay for it, really took advantage of some of the, scholarships and things that are out there and made it happen. And then, we'll have a story like we have a current young man whose name is Saeed, and he moved here, is an immigrant to this country, just moved to Minnesota, didn't know very many people, and started working at Cookie Cart. And the other day I overheard him telling one of the other adults here that he really thinks that it was just that it was meant to be that he would find Cookie Cart because he was living in Houston, and then all of a sudden his family moved to Minnesota. They didn't really know why. They didn't have anything, and he found Cookie Cart and has new friends and new connections to this community that he lives in now. And as a teenager, you're going through such a transformational time, and it can really dictate the person you become if something negative happens to you. And moving from another country to another town in the United States to settling on one as a teenager could be really tough. And Saeed has a lot of skills that he will bring out of this experience that'll help him to be successful. And that's exactly the point, is that we kind of meet everybody where they're at and help them, again, find in themselves what it's going to be that makes their life awesome.
That was so heartwarming. I'm picturing this mom on a date with her son, and
I know, right? That story. I just about died when she told me that story. And I have these little sons. I can't imagine taking them to a nice restaurant.
That is so wonderful.
Yeah.
And I could just, I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, I need to get my husband to take her daughter out on dates now.
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, it's just a huge thing to show them, how to behave, and then also what to expect in other people's behavior.
Yep. And she said that now he's a teenager. And she said it's fun because sometimes, she said, he sort of, on date night, quote unquote, he sort of switches over and he kind of becomes, she said, I've seen him sort of become a man. He'll say, so how was your day today? He'll ask like date-like questions instead of just, hey mom, you know what I mean? Where he really could, as a teenager, just look at his food and they wouldn't have to talk a whole lot, right? So it's a super heartwarming story, and there's a lot of them, and that's, again, I think that's one of the things that's really kept me at Cookie Cart for as long as I've been here, because I just come across these little stars that kind of light up the next couple months in my life, because I'm just so proud of what's happening in there. So
Completely. How did you find yourself getting into this work? What was your path, or what was the thing that inspired you to get into this work?
Mm-hmm. I have it was not direct. And as we talk about it here, we always say that your path doesn't have to be straight. Mine definitely wasn't. I have a art background. I went to school for graphic design, and then I moved to the Twin Cities, and I started doing some sort of freelance design for some political candidates, and it ended up being a fundraiser for Congressman Keith Ellison. And sort of learned fundraising from him. And as I grew in that role and met my husband and started thinking about a family, it became hard to think about how I would try to keep up with the speed of the political environment and, do what I wanted to as a mom. So I let him know I was leaving and said, I think I need to, find something, a little bit smaller. So my biggest challenge with political fundraising is it really felt hard to make an impact. It really felt hard to make change. And I don't need to comment on today's climate in any way, but, change doesn't happen fast, and it takes a lot of good people working in the same direction. And that was really challenging. And so actually Keith said to me, I think you would like the Cookie Cart. You should go check it out.
Oh, that's
and
so
at
nice.
the time, yeah, he actually, raised his family right nearby, and they were familiar with the program. And so I did, and they happened to be on the kind of edge of a strategic plan that included some additional staff, and so they had an open position, and so I applied and got it. And yeah, so the rest, as they say, right, is history. So it wasn't extremely intentional, but what I did know is I wanted to be involved in a program that was working sort of on the ground level, and I didn't care if it wasn't going to solve 10,000 people's problems. I just wanted to help somebody. And so coming from a pretty broad focus of politics to let's work on this 100 kids, right? That was okay for me, because it felt like if I can make a difference in that many, at least I've touched that many, right?
And you mentioned a little bit too, well, actually, let me back up. I think it's great that, you were going down this path. I always think it's wonderful when people are going down a particular path and they realize, no, this isn't quite right for me, because that admission in and of itself is hard to make sometimes. It's hard to even quietly in our own minds, it's hard to tell ourselves the truth sometimes. And then it's even harder to start to make the changes to turn the boat in the direction that you want to turn it. So I think that's wonderful that you recognize that there was something else out there that would be more fulfilling or be more aligned with where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Secondly, something that my mind keeps coming back to when we were chatting as we were getting ready to do your episode, you mentioned your mom, and she sounds really cool. I mean, she just sounds like a really neat lady. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yes. So she is, and I'll kind of start with now and work a little bit backwards. So my mom currently runs a farm in northern Minnesota that grows potatoes, corn, and kidney beans. And she took that farm over from my dad, who passed away about 9 years ago. And she took on a farm as a woman walking into a man's world. I mean, I can't really think of an industry where that's more true. Maybe construction, but I think farming has definitely got a perception of being a man's world. And running a pretty big farm, she had been running it with my dad for several years. It's a 100-year farm, so it's been in our family for a long time. And she sort of took the opportunity when he passed away to not only say, I'm not going to just let this go for my family, but also I want to make an impact in farming in my own way. And so she took that project on when she was about 61 years old, so not super far from retirement. And she has done some work, lobbying in Congress, and has been to Washington to talk to lawmakers there about kind of some of the challenges that are coming up for the world around food. So, unfortunately, a lot of farms grow food for animals and not food for people. I really like bacon. I'm not going to, lie and say that I'm a vegetarian or anything, but we need to do something different. And she recognized that, and I think has been on the forefront sort of in her community of saying, how can we be good stewards of the land and the water so that we can continue to produce food for the people here? And that's a hard challenge to take on, and also it's just amazing to me that she has been able to do that. I'm one of 6 kids, so she has a large family, and she throughout her life with my dad living on our farm, farms have good years and bad years, and there was a lot of years for us where we didn't know if farming was going to sustain our whole family. And she really trusted in my dad, and they had a strong partnership that made it happen. And I mean, they worked hard and sacrificed in some of those things, and now that farm is, extremely successful in providing a lot of food for a lot of people, and, has a huge staff and is, providing jobs and contributing really significantly. The other, I think, really amazing thing about my mom is she's able to just give of herself, in a few ways. She has some similarities to Sister Jean, but she really gives of herself to inspire other people to do more and give more to their communities. So always was very supportive of my choice to, be in the nonprofit world, where knowing that if I got a corporate job, maybe I could make some more money. I think she's been really proud of the fact that I work in a place that has a different kind of impact, right? And supportive of her entire family to go do what they want to do, and hold them up when they're down. I mean, as a mother, I'm only beginning to see how hard that can be, because you just want to protect them from the world. And she really was able to say, go do it. And you might fall down and you might fail, and you'll get up and you'll keep going, right? So
Yeah.
she's an outstanding lady, and I'm thrilled to say that she continues to inspire me to whatever comes next, right?
How has that made you think differently about some of the challenges you've faced in your career or even outside of that? How do you think differently about sort of unexpected things? Because, right, she wasn't expecting to
Right.
take over a farm
Oh,
at any point, but she did it and she's doing it in an amazing way and in her own way. What has that meant to you?
yeah. I think the biggest thing is that as long as you love doing something, keep doing it. So I think there's, it's easy to think, okay, maybe I should try to move up in my career or job or whatever I'm doing. Or maybe I should, I don't want it to seem like I'm just stuck here or, I need to do the next best thing, right? There's a lot of that in our society today. And I think she saw an opportunity for a new challenge and she took it and she wasn't afraid to fail. And I'll say that farming is risky. It can be marginal. And if you have a hailstorm, right, you could lose a lot. And so you really have to have faith and take risks and be smart and be planful. And I think the biggest thing that's helped me to see is if you love something, do it. Don't forget to stretch yourself and take some risks and continue to challenge yourself. So I think the biggest thing I love about working at Cookie Cart is from the time I started here, they have been pushing the organization to meet a bigger and bigger need. It's not okay that 100 kids work here and 200 kids applied and we turned those kids away. That's not okay. We have to meet that need. We have said time and again, what does it take to get that done and how can we do it? And so as the fundraiser, my job is not, easy. Every year I ask for the same number of donations. It's hard. It's work to get new sources of revenue to make people who have been contributing to the organization feel really included and special and know that their donations and their contributions are making it happen. And I love that about this organization. And I think no matter where in our careers we go, we need to be in a place where we feel like we have that enthusiasm for whatever it is we're doing. And so I think, that's what Sister Jean had. She had a ton of that enthusiasm for just the kids and their honest little faces. I think that's what my mom has for sort of saying, I'm going to take what we've worked so hard for, what people before me have worked hard for, and make it continue to produce food for people for the next, hopefully 100 years. And that's what I like to do is remain enthusiastic about this mission and about the fact that this is working for kids. It's helping them have a better future, have more success in their life, find that place that's, really positive for them. We hear now that, today's kids are not going to have as good of life as their parents. That's really crazy. We want to change that. And we're going to start with the kids who are kind of in the, worst case, right? Cycles of poverty. So I think bringing that enthusiasm to whatever you do and knowing that you can take a risk and you can do something different. And there's a lot of really hard things about that, and that's okay. Like it can be hard, and maybe easier said than done. I can't, I haven't made that many huge jumps in my life, but I do think that I think being open to that is really part of what makes us feel alive.
I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. This is wonderful. It has been so amazing to talk to you and to learn more about Cookie Cart and how it started and how you got involved in your role and your mom. I almost feel like we've met three amazing women. We've gotten to meet you and, this amazing work that you're doing. We've gotten to know Sister Jean and the impact that she had by doing just some of these simple things with kids. And then we got to meet your mom, who is taking on this huge challenge and killing it in her own way. So I feel like we got 3 for 1 in this podcast interview. It's just awesome. Before I let you go, I have to ask you the question that I ask every single person on the podcast. We are compiling a Spotify Power playlist, which is a playlist of motivational songs that help people when they're having sort of a down day or they need some motivation for one reason or another. This is a place they can turn to get that through music. So I have to ask you for your contribution to our playlist on Spotify.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was not prepared for that question, but let's see.
If you need a minute to think, it's totally fine.
Let's see. Yes, I might need a minute. Okay.
No worries.
I'm a mom, so I often listen to like Moana soundtracks. And while I don't know that I want to contribute Disney to the playlist, that's often where mine comes from. To be totally honest, probably a lot of mine is, I listen to a lot of different stuff. That's hard. If I really need to get sort of in the mood, jazzed up, I go for like the Talking Heads. I'll burn down the house a little bit.
Nice. I like it. That is not on there.
Good.
That's an awesome contribution. That's really good. That is not on there.
Maybe better than like Where You Are from Moana.
Maybe I'll add them both just for fun. Both sides.
Contributed by Anonymous.
Exactly. And this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for hopping on and sharing this with us. One plug I want to put in before I let you go. Folks, Christmas is coming up. You don't want to make all those cookies yourself. Maybe you want to make some of those cookies yourself. That's fine. But if you need an incredible place to go to get your holiday cookies and to, have these amazing handcrafted cookies that also you get that added bonus of contributing to an amazing organization that now you know a lot about, definitely head over to cookiecart.org. You can order cookies right online. They have a bunch of different options. M&M, chocolate chip, ginger. You can order cookie dough if you want to do the cookie thing yourself, but you don't want to do the whole mess yourself. You can do that. There's a ton of options. They have hand decorated options. I mean, they seriously have it all. So head over there, buy Christmas cookies, holiday cookies there. This year, you'll be really supporting an amazing organization that is doing some serious good in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So I had to put that plug in before I let you go today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Well, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Anna Bregier from the Cookie Cart in North Minneapolis. There were a couple of takeaways that I wanted to highlight from this interview. First of all, if you think about what we learned from Anna's experience and then also from Sister Jean's experience, we all see need around us, especially this time of year. You can see that there are families and kids and other people who have needs, and sometimes it can just feel overwhelming. And, you can just be, just paralyzed as to how you can possibly help. And what I thought was so neat about Anna's experience and about Sister Jean's experience is that it wasn't anything complicated. They're making cookies. And that uncomplicated, very simple thing was what helped the snowball start rolling and helped conversations start happening and helped other needs be uncovered and helped them develop this organization that helps so many kids in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So sometimes I think we just try to overcomplicate things and we let it just paralyze us when ultimately the easiest thing to do and the most effective thing to do is just to take the very first simple step forward and help in a really straightforward, simple way. Now, the second thing that I want to highlight was the story of Anna's mom. How amazing is that? I mean, here she finds herself in this situation where she has to take over a farm and is not necessarily feeling like she's ready to do that. And we've all been in a situation where we've been faced with something really risky. And what I think is really interesting about Anna's mom's situation is that she looked at it and she decided, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to take on this risk. I'm going to take on this really big goal, but I'm going to do it in my way. I'm going to do it differently than the people before me had done. I'm going to do it differently than the people around me are doing it. I think I have a way that feels more authentic, that feels more aligned with my values, and that's how I'm going to attack this risky thing. And ultimately, maybe that's part of the reason why certain things feel risky. Maybe they just don't feel authentic quite yet. But if we took a different approach, if we took a slightly different path toward achieving those things, it might not feel so risky. It might actually feel like something we can do and something we can get passionate about and excited to try. So I would encourage you, the next time you're faced with a really risky situation, ask yourself whether there's a way that you can approach that situation from a more authentic way and try it in a way that maybe other people around you aren't doing it. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I have a couple more things if you can just hang with me for a second. Number one, again, if you're ordering holiday cookies and delicious things to feed to friends and family or give for gifts this year, there is not a more deserving organization than the Cookie Cart. You'd be helping so many kids in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I would highly encourage you to order from them this holiday season. Second, I want to give a little plug for next week's episode. Next week, you are going to meet this awesome, rad woman named Lisa Brower. She rode her motorcycle across the United States, coast to coast. She has developed this awesome brand to help people gain confidence and tackle really difficult challenges and just really live authentically and big, amazing lives. She's actually going to be in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Motorcycle Show. So if you are in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, you can actually meet her this weekend from December 8th through December 10th at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Lisa Brower will be at the Minneapolis Motorcycle Show. I highly suggest you stop by and meet her and then tune in next week for her she's just amazing, like total powerhouse. Such an awesome woman. I'm excited for her episode, and I'm so excited for you guys to meet her through her interview. So definitely check that out. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, I would so appreciate a rating and a review on iTunes. And definitely, if there is another person in your life who is looking for inspirational content, I would love it if you would share this episode with them. It would mean so much to me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Oh my gosh, 2017 is winding down. This is crazy. Until next week, I hope you have an amazing, inspiring week.